Hey y'all, Dominick here for Obligatory. I'm joined by one of the finest bands out of Austin, Texas, Virginia Creeper. They put out their latest album, Girl, You'll Be a Giant Soon, about a month ago on Candlepin Records. It's a super dynamic display of what I like to broadly refer to as Texas slowcore, though that term alone obviously does not capture the full scope of their sound. One of my favorites of 2026 so far, and very excited for this interview. Thanks for taking the time to chat. You all want to introduce yourselves and let everyone know how things are going?
Yeah. Uh, I'm Genevieve. I play guitar and sing in Virginia Creeper, and yeah, we're stoked to be talking to y'all.
I'm Michelle and I play bass.
I'm Kyle and I play drums.
And I'm Aaron. I play guitar and synthesizer.
Well, we'll start things off with a relatively easy question, I think. The name, Virginia Creeper. My first thought was that it was a Mothman reference because there's Mothman is mentioned in the description for your EP Goblin 7. There's a picture on your Instagram with a giant Mothman that someone just had in their lawn, apparently. Um, but it's also a plant, as well as I just learned a title of a 2004 album by Grant Lee Phillips. Is the name inspired by one of these, a combination, or how'd you end up landing on it?
Um, that's a great question. I kind of think it's yes to all. Yeah, in its purest form, I think it's derived from the plant, but the plant is the name of a trail in the area in which the Mothman legend prevails. So yeah, I kind of think it's all of the above. There's also a like Christian metalcore band with the name that you could say inspired it too, but I'm not that familiar with their catalog. But sometimes their music gets mixed with ours on streaming platforms, which
Hmm.
is a little game. So yeah, I don't know if the rest of y'all would agree, but I feel like it's all of the above situation.
I do have two more questions we'll get to later on that relate to cryptids, but I did want to talk about the idea that I mentioned of, Texas slowcore that, at least in my head, I think of a very broad grouping of like, y'all and Teeth, Shallow Water, Amelia's Best Friend, to name a few. But you also self-describe as pastoral sludge, which I love. And as far as I could find, I don't think there's any other band that's claimed that yet. So, for the uninitiated, how would you describe your sound and the spirit of pastoral sludge?
We're all on mute.
I'll go again. Y'all should hop in if you have anything to add. I think the term is intentionally supposed to be provocative, I think. And I personally really appreciate when bands try to describe their music using words that aren't typically used because I find it more intriguing and it kind of adds to my experience as a listener. And so that never before heard of descriptor type thing is intentional, I guess. But I feel like pastoral evokes a lot of maybe like Southern Gothic or folk imagery, which I think is somewhat represented in like our lyrics and kind of the eeriness of some of our music and the cryptid association, I guess. But I don't really know if what we do is sludge in the traditional sense of that word, but there's definitely an intensity and a darkness to a lot of the music as well. And I think those two things kind of are maybe in tension sometimes. And so it's interesting to me to put them together. And I feel like that's kind of what we are trying to do a lot of the times with our music. But y'all might think that sounds crazy. So I didn't say that in front of y'all before.
No, I agree. I was gonna say I feel like it encompasses the fact that Virginia Creeper started more in a kind of like folk influenced realm and eventually like adopted more of a heavier sound. So I think it encompasses kind of the middle ground that we're aiming for.
With that idea, well, also, yeah, I love the, unique names as well. It reminded me there's two Philly bands that I know have like done something similar, where one of them, band Friend, they refer to themselves as Goblin Punk. And there's this other band, Body Spray. All their music is tagged Hoagie Core, which, yeah. But so going back again, another question related to like Texas slowcore, pastoral sludge, maybe some others that could be close, maybe similar. I don't know. I haven't heard those ones yet. But obviously Texas, massive, probably so many artists I don't know about. So a handful I do, but curious kind of the geographic like ties because I did some research and the five largest cities, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin, are all, relatively close, with Austin seeming to be the most central of the bunch, at least distance wise. Seems kind of comparable to like the Northeast, like Dallas to San Antonio is pretty comparable to like Philly to Boston. So I'm just wondering, what's your perspective of the Austin music scene? Maybe some recommendations and how intertwined are the different cities of Texas?
I feel like for one, like everyone, no matter what city you're in, like is already expecting to just be driving a lot, like day to day. And so I feel like um driving a little extra to go play with some other friends in another place doesn't feel like that different. I've never lived in the Northeast, but in my head, like you're always doing so many things like in your neighborhood or in your immediate vicinity. And so like, a train or car trip, I don't, my perception is maybe like it would feel a little bit more out of the ordinary. Whereas like I feel like, especially like for me, like you just live in Dallas and like Austin's a lot more close together, but like I don't know, I feel like sometimes if there's like traffic or whatever, like you could just be driving like in your same city for like over an hour. And so I feel like to me it feels like everything's really connected. Like it's like there's hundreds of miles like spanning all this shit, but I feel like it feels really connected because it's kind of like the same highways and the same transportation you're using just to like get around town, I guess. And so I feel like and especially as like all these cities kind of um like expand in the way that they do down here, which is like laterally, like that space just kind of gets filled in. So like, Austin to San Antonio now like pretty much feels like a sort of like continuous almost like cityscape. And I feel like Dallas to Austin like is becoming that way even though it's like a 3 hour drive, So I feel like the places are really connected because like the uh the like lifestyles and like the ways that you get from place to place are kind of like uh very heavily like shared and like everybody's kind of already traveling to all these places anyway, maybe on like a monthly basis.
Yeah, definitely agree with what Kyle said. The state is just designed in a way that seems more hospitable to vehicles than humans. Um, I feel like if you live in one of the big cities, it is basically like if you're in a walkable neighborhood, you probably make six figures or you're really lucky. But it does lead to this way where, yeah, it doesn't seem as big of a deal to just get out and do that drive. I'm from San Antonio, born and raised there, still live here. Um, and it was just like a common thing when I was in high school to just like, cool, we're gonna do just a little weekend Texas tour basically. Maybe this weekend we'll hit Austin and Dallas, then we'll hit Corpus and Houston the next, and then go to El Paso because that basically takes an entire weekend to itself. But because of that, yeah, you do feel. I've always felt like, for example, like a strong camaraderie with like the Denton scene, even though it's like 4 to 5 hours away, um, and I've never lived there in my life. Um, and yet, Rubber Gloves, the main venue there, feels um, like kind of just as much a home venue to me as a spot in my own town. Yeah, and there's some really good, very good bands just along like the I-35 corridor that we play quite often. Just like off the top of my head, bands like Brown, bands like Skimp and Darling Farm and Denton. Brown's an Austin band, by the way, who share a lot of members with Alex Alone, another really great Austin band. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'll let y'all throw some in, but just off the top, those are, I think, guitar music bands that yeah, get excited to hear all the time.
Yeah, I'll also add too that Austin, it's funny because Aaron is from San Antonio, Kyle is from Dallas, and I grew up in Houston. And so we all just like congregated and met in Austin. And I think the unique thing about Austin, whether good or bad, I would probably honestly lean bad, but is that Austin's culture currently is very new, where I feel like Dallas and Houston, San Antonio, the culture is rooted and influenced by a lot of history that's already established there since they're like big metropolitan cities that have been there for a long time. But Austin is very recently has grown to the size that it's been. And so, and there we just had like a huge kind of not exodus of people leaving, but people coming to Austin. So it just feels like, I don't know, there's a lot to be exposed to here, but also I think there is this yearning for something more concrete or like yearning for something fresh that isn't how do I say this? Like that isn't so commercialized. I feel like the scenes that we're in are people that are like longing for something that we maybe had back home and appreciated of like a culture and a history and a richness that was pre-existing. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents about how Austin is at least different from those cities, even though it is true that the driving culture makes it feel very unified. Yeah, I was gonna say Darling Farm as one of my bands. I'm trying to think of other bands that were coming to mind. I mean, I can think of many also that just aren't that don't have like a similar sound to us, but ones that come to mind that I love in town are Large Brush Collection and Other Vessels.
Yeah, I affirm everyone's band recommendations. I feel like we're always singing the praises of those people. I'm not from Texas, as was mentioned maybe or indicated by Michelle, but so I am, a stranger in a stranger land essentially. But I feel like Texas, the reason that so many of these bands from different cities that are kind of far apart either share bills or share sort of a like culture or this well, I guess it's maybe more the Austin bands that Michelle's talking about that are like have a yearning for this kind of tangible something that isn't new. I feel like the scene here is more like state wide rather than city based. Even though there's tons of bands in Austin, there's tons of bands in Denton and San Antonio and Houston and whatnot. But it feels like it's more of like a Texas sound. If anything, obviously there's much subgenre within that, but I feel like that's an interesting aspect of living here and being kind of isolated from easily going to other places or cities. It becomes more of this like widespread community and way of influencing one another and whether it's similar music or not, which I think is really interesting. And then one more band I'll add is called Palace Wept, and they're from Houston. They're very cool. I'm probably forgetting a multitude of people though.
Yeah, it's kind of, I feel like that's always the toughest question to ask anyone. It's just like, name me some bands that I should check out. It's like, there's so many that it's just they all disappear. But I'll have to write I'll have to listen back. I'm gonna write all these down. I'll have to check them out. Because yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in just regional scenes in general. I feel like I kind of got that vibe of like it seems like there's sort of an interconnected despite like the distance, whereas like not that like Philly is like totally isolated from these other scenes, but it's just like it's all so close together that like they feel so distinct from like New York City to Boston, but there also is this sort of like frequency of travel also blurs the line. But yeah, want to go back a little bit. Like I said, I had two more questions related to cryptids, not directly about them specifically, but the first of which is about the EP you put out over the summer, Goblin 7. You mentioned Mothman in the description. I'm just curious, is Goblin 7 like, is there more to know about this creature that the EP is named after? Or is the namesake primarily taken from, I saw a picture of a license plate that Aaron took a picture with. Is that where the name came from? Is there backstory to the creature of Goblin 7, or what's going on with that?
Yeah, definitely. That is for sure our like in-house cryptid. And I think Genevieve maybe can best explain.
You're really good at picking up all the clues that we left
Yeah,
out.
I agree.
I appreciate this. Um, yeah, Goblin 7 is in-house cryptid for Virginia Creeper. When we were on tour a while back, we were driving to the Northeast, and we stopped at this place in Virginia called Abington, which is where the Virginia Creeper Trailhead is located. And we wanted to take a picture with the sign, obviously, which was fun. And kind of as a detour in that quest, we stopped at this burger restaurant called Powell's. You should look that up. It's really freaky. I think I've described it before as if SpongeBob and David Lynch, well, I guess if David Lynch directed an episode of SpongeBob, it would look like what this place looked like. I think Aaron described it as where Grimace goes to church, which I think is also fitting. But it was just, it's very, you should look it up. It looks very interesting. And we were in the parking lot. We saw a vanity plate that said Goblin 7. And we were really intrigued by that. It's kind of cool. We took the picture and we were getting ready to leave. And we saw an employee of this burger joint walking outside. And Aaron just rolled down the window and wanted to see, take a chance and ask if that was Goblin 7. So they did. And the person just said, yeah, and then kept going, which was a really impressive way to answer that question. And so we thought that was awesome, but we didn't know if they were even, telling the truth or whatnot. But they definitely left some sort of impression in our minds. And then fast forward 2 years later, basically, Kyle and I were driving in the same place. So we were on the highway passing Abington, and we saw Goblin 7, like the car next to us. I was asleep, and Kyle, like, basically like screamed, and I thought we were crashing the car, but they were just trying to like wake me up to see what was happening. And it was the same person in the same car. And yeah, we, as anyone would do, tried to follow them because that was a really normal decision. We didn't really know what to do, but yeah, we were trying to follow them. We called the rest of the band, Michelle and Aaron, who weren't with us at the time. Michelle sadly couldn't answer, but Aaron picked up, and we are trying to do some like research on the ground for us to see if we could figure out who this person was or a way to like contact them, because we wanted to like give them a tape or something, or tell them how they really changed our lives basically. But basically we just followed them, and then we were interrupted in our pursuit by this flock of geese that like walked between our cars, and then we lost the tail. And it felt like a video game. But that is kind of the current junction of the Goblin 7 lore. We hope there's another chapter to happen, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I wonder if they know. I wonder if they've discovered the EP yet,
Yeah,
the impact they
I'm
made.
really curious.
Goblin 7, if you're watching this, reach out. So then this one is quicker. I think probably a simpler one. So if not Mothman or besides Mothman, do y'all have a favorite cryptid?
It's kind of hard to beat Mothman. I feel like the one that always comes up for me, and I know G and I talk about them, is the Loveland frog, which is just a basically a large frog that lives in Ohio. He can walk on his hind legs, and he's not like massive. He's not like bigger than a person, but he's like a big kid, like a boy you see, and you're like, you're gonna make a good linebacker one day. Um, and he doesn't really seem to. There's a movie that is kind of slanderous that got made recently where he's vicious, but from all accounts, he mostly just dances like when people spot him. Um, so from it's kind of hard to beat that. I think Mothman comes up often for us though. The whole like Mothman prophecies and Drid Cole stuff is really compelling. Um, and yeah, the Loveland Frog doesn't have a movie that ends with a song by Low like the Mothman does. So they're pretty neck and neck, I'd say.
One that sticks out for me that I don't even know officially if it's on the like cryptid list is just when is Champ from Lake Champlain in Vermont. Is that a cryptid? Yes or no? Okay, not one thumbs up. Basically, I don't know. It's at this lake in Vermont that we drove to one time. It's kind of like a Loch Ness monster, but it seems kind of like more like a benevolent Loch Ness monster. There's like a little statue that kids take pictures with and stuff. Uh, so I'm gonna say that one. I'm gonna induct Champ into the pantheon.
Champ, congratulations.
You made him a champion, which is a quote from the movie I, Tonya. Um, the only cryptid that I can think of is I have friends that had an encounter with something called the demon dog in the Tennessee Appalachia area. So that's the only one that I'm really, and Champ. Those are the only two that I feel any sort of knowledge or kinship with.
Erin kind of answered for me in that I really go hard for the Loveland frog. Um, they have really cool, just overall impression, I think. There's also the Goat Man in Maryland. I think that they're a little potentially more nefarious. So, but they're representing where I'm from. So I'll give the shout out.
That one, I've thought about this. I don't know if I've expressed it, but I like that because it's kind of like a connection, a Maryland Texas connection, because there's a goat man in Texas too. I think it's more of like a tragic figure, but there's a goat man's bridge in Denton. Um, yeah, this is a very important subject to our band.
I'll throw one out there of my own. Are you guys familiar with the squonk? Yeah, I had I think it was my mom's. Was around for the majority of my childhood named Squonk. I don't know if I think it might have been because we moved when it was older and it just like didn't get accustomed to the new house and it didn't like me at the very least. It kind of just like hid in the basement for me. I think most people, it's kind of funny because the cryptid, the Squonk, is like this hideous creature that hides in the forest crying all the time. And then if it's seen, it like weeps so hard that it evaporates into its own tears. Yeah. Um,
What region
so
of the U.S. What region of the world is the skunk from?
Oh, it's I think it says northern Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's like the
Okay,
forests of northern Pennsylvania.
is that
I've
near where
seen
you
it.
grew up?
I think I'm in like southeastern Pennsylvania, so I'd have to travel a little bit, but you know, it's in the home state, so I feel like I can claim it. So we got to the bottom of Goblin 7, and it's no big secret that Girl You'll Be a Giant Soon is named after an episode of the Hill. Gonna assume that the show has a special place in all of your hearts. I think as it should to some extent to anyone who watched it. It's a phenomenal show. But I'd love to hear more on that and why this specific episode for the name of the album.
Yeah, King of the Hill, I feel like is a really emblematic show of Texas life. And so, as we were just talking about earlier, the fact that we're a band based in Texas, it is something that feels really culturally potent. I think in terms of picking that episode title specifically, I do this weird thing where I will read through all the episodes of a TV show before watching them. Not well, I don't know if it's necessarily before, but just like I'm doing research and I'm like, I have to know everything about the show. So I did that at one point in the past with King of the Hill, and there were a couple episode titles that were just really interesting to me, like phrase wise, and very compelling. And that was one of them. And then eventually, when I watched the episode, basically what happens in it is uh, Hank is trying to grill at the Texas State Fair, but they've like outlawed propane. And so then Luann does this big protest kind of for Hank, but also this sort of this other component about it as well. And through all of that, she gets into the giant Big Tex statue, if you're familiar, that is featured at the Texas State Fair, famously caught on fire several years ago. And I feel like on the surface, we have a song that's about Big Tex, and that felt like a obvious tie-in. But I think there's also this idea in that episode of someone wanting to be like bigger than the environment that they're in, or wanting to kind of take on like a bigger identity. And I feel like that is somewhat represented in a lot of the songs and the music that we're making in pursuit of this record. And so it kind of just felt like it touched on a lot of different intents that we had, and also just inspiration that was happening. And so, yeah.
I did mean to watch that episode back because I don't really remember it, but I'm gonna do that probably tomorrow. It's been a couple years since I watched it through, but I know I watched it back a few years ago. My dog at the time, like this is the probably the number one memory I have of King of the Hill at this point is that there's an episode where I want to say, does Dale have a dog? Someone has a dog that is like, I remember them barking, and my dog freaked out. The animated dog on the TV. Yeah.
Dogs
But
love to.
I have kind of like one last final question. It's kind of a two-parter. Uh, so when you go on your Bandcamp page, it reads 6'7", 210 power forward from Texas. I wonder if there's, what if there's any significance to that, if it's like some sort of metaphor for the sound of your music, or, maybe a player profile of like the Virginia Creeper or Goblin 7 perhaps, or what that means.
I feel like spiritually it represents us, even though none of us are that tall. I think Michelle's the tallest, but Michelle, you're pretty tall, but not quite 6'7".
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I learned I loved playing basketball, and I grew like I had a growth spurt before any of my other classmates. So I played center, um, but I never got any taller. So I'm still like 5'7". So in my head, I know my career is over, but in my heart, I still sometimes feel like that 6'7" power forward.
When I was like 2 or 3 and they predict your height, I'm actually 5'9", but uh, when I was like 2 or 3 and they predict what height you'll be, they thought that I was going to be 6'4". So I almost made it. But spiritually, I'm the 6'7" power forward.
I think we talked about in the past the idea of just kind of listing stats instead of names and stuff like that when describing who's in a band. And we have a lot of sports themed, or I guess sports just influence a lot of the things that we write and make music about. And also we just like them to certain degrees. Um, so I think it kind of comes a little bit from that. And think Aaron is right about it representing the like platonic ideal Virginia Creeper basketball player. But they actually are the height and weight for a player that I really like, but I don't think I've ever even told y'all or
Who is
anyone
it?
is. And you guys should guess.
Who is it? Oh, it's probably someone from Maryland.
No,
Oh,
Is it John? Is it not John Morant?
no.
Are they are they from Texas?
Um, that part of the statement is just referring to us. And I don't think that they are.
I have a real
Well,
guess.
actually, no, they okay, they are, but they're not like known in their basketball career for being from Texas, if that makes sense.
Is
Wait,
it
I don't know.
Shaq? No, Shaq's taller than 6'7".
Yeah, he went to high school in San Antonio, though. Fun fact.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
why
I
I guessed him.
thinking.
That's why I was guessing him.
I have a strong suspicion that it's one Jimmy Buckets.
Okay, that's really close. This person is similar, but from a different era.
Hmm.
I I do have a list. I compiled some players from Texas.
Awesome.
I did put the specific qualification from Texas, and I have a list of players that come close. I don't think I found anyone who was a 6'7", 210 power forward, but like I don't know, the heights get a little weird because like someone who was listed 6'8" in the 90s would probably be 6'7" now, and like I think Jimmy Butler is listed at 6'6", but he was listed at 6'7" when he came in the league.
Yes.
And like players' weights fluctuate, so I don't know. But I'll real quick run through the names. I can give you some details. I can give you the statistics if you want. But let me know if any of these were the ones you're thinking of. All these are from Texas. Uh, Jimmy Butler, Bo Outlaw, Steven Jackson, Kenrick Williams, or Kenrich Williams, Tarian Prince, Quincy AC, although he's 240, he's a little bit bigger. Same with Larry Johnson. He's 6'7", but he's like 235, 250. So he's a little bit on the bigger end, but is it any of those?
No, but those are all really great picks.
I know you're a big Turian Prince fan.
Okay, the from Texas thing is a little complicated because this person was born elsewhere, but they
Mm.
grew up and went to high school outside of Dallas. And then they were famously on kind of two other main teams that are not in Texas. Um,
okay. So who is it?
Dennis Rodman.
That's what I was
Mm.
thinking.
Oh, well, he did. He did. People forget. He played for the Spurs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Not his like, I guess, most famous
No, not at all.
part of his career. But yeah, that's true. He went to high school in Oak Cliff, which is a neighborhood in Dallas. And I think he's from New Jersey, so like your research probably
Mm.
didn't put you in the right way, but he
Yeah. Damn. I feel like I could have got there. I should have known that he went to
those are
college in
really
Texas for
impressive
at least a little.
guesses.
Yeah, I felt confident about Bo Outlaw maybe because like he's 6'8", 210, but he's probably 6'7" because he played before they changed the height requirement. But I mean, I feel like all the players I listed, like I don't know, I don't know if any of them really are on like the level of hustle that Dennis Rodman was. But they do all kind of have like the sort of scrappy hustle player mentality that I feel like especially if you're referencing Dennis Rodman, it's probably kind of the main point you're going for now.
Yeah, no, that's entirely correct. Yeah.
Cool. Well, nonetheless, I had a lot of fun trying to guess and doing that research.
Awesome. That's what we want.
Man, I really wish I would have got it though. But all right. Those are all the questions I had. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about that I failed to hit on?
You talked cryptids, so no.
Do you like Allen Iverson, or did you grow up liking the Sixers?
I mean, I'm 26, so I missed like the prime of Allen Iverson. Obviously, I love him, but like I was like, 6 years old by the time he left the Sixers, probably somewhere in that range. My favorite player as a kid was Dwayne Wade, which obviously he
Mhm.
didn't play for the Sixers, but I mean, my childhood, I didn't have a lot to root for with the Sixers. I mean, they were like 9-73 the one year or something. Yeah, my like peak basketball fandom was like the heart of the process when they were just absolutely terrible. So, I mean, I can give you like Jarvis Varnado and like KJ McDaniels and like these random dudes that played 2 seasons in the league for like some fond memories of the Sixers, but yeah, I've missed out on the prime AI.
No, that
Then
makes
I,
sense time-wise.
then I guess I'll ask that question. Do y'all have favorite basketball other than Dennis Rodman? I assume he's up there.
I feel like mine's pretty obvious just as a San Antonio person of a certain age. It's Tim Duncan, you know?
Yeah, I feel this is such a like name a basketball player, first name that comes to mind, but I love Shaq and I went to LSU and I lived right next to a statue of Shaq dunking. Which is like the only statue we have to any alumni that ever went to LSU. But also Yao Ming, since I'm from Houston. I grew up in Yao Ming era.
Bless you, Ben Simmons, Sixers legend.
I feel like it's kind of hard for me to pick because I didn't really get into basketball until recently, but I feel like um I feel like when I was growing up, it was like everyone in Dallas worshiped Dirk, but then I would watch ESPN every morning when I was like eating cereal and stuff. And like every time they were always talking about Steve Nash and like they'd show highlights and stuff and I was like, this dude is awesome. Like they should get him on the team. I feel like I don't know, kind of like some of the people that we're talking about, even shorter, I guess, than Rodman and them. But like yeah, I don't know. He was like scrappy team leader, kind of had obviously like a iconic look. I don't know. Also, I grew up playing hockey, and he kind of has like hockey hair and face. So maybe I was subconsciously I like that about him, but I don't know. I feel like he has crazy highlights, and I feel like I just like grew up at a time when he was like it was like Dirk was God, but then he was like on another. I don't know. I feel like he was on another level.
Yeah, I mean those are all great picks. Another great pick, music wise, is "Girl, You'll Be a Giant Soon," Virginia Creeper. I'd say it's just as good as Steve Nash was on the basketball court, or Tim Duncan, or whatever legend you want to choose. It's up there. And if you're
That's
watching
big.
this, if you're watching this, listen to the album. Mothman is also big. I don't know. But yeah, thank you all so much for this, and everyone go listen to Virginia Creeper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Yep, of
Really
course.
appreciate it.
Take care.